Let me be direct with you from the outset, because the situation unfolding beneath the waters of the Persian Gulf demands directness. What we are witnessing is not a military exercise. It is not a defensive posture. What we are witnessing is the activation of a weapon system that has been sitting dormant for 7 years, and most Americans have absolutely no idea it exists. I am looking at intelligence briefs that have been circulating among NATO maritime analysts for the past 96 hours. What they describe is not a surface fleet. It is not a missile battery. It is not even a submarine in the conventional sense. What they describe is a network of autonomous underwater systems, intelligence-gathering sensors, and pre-positioned mines covering an area of approximately 240,000 square kilometers. That is the entire floor of the Strait of Hormuz and significant portions of the approaches to the Arabian Sea, and Iran activated it 4 days ago. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly what this system is, why American naval commanders are treating this as a strategic level threat, and why 20% of global oil supply is now at risk. This is not speculation. This is documented. This is happening. Subscribe now if you have not already, because what we are about to cover is being discussed in classified briefings at CENTCOM headquarters right now, and you will not find this level of detail in any mainstream news report. Let's start with the geography, because understanding what Iran has done requires understanding where they have done it. The Strait of Hormuz is a choke point connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and then to the Arabian Sea. At its narrowest point, the strait is 21 nautical miles wide. Approximately 35% of all seaborne traded oil passes through this strait. That is roughly 21 million barrels per day. If the strait closes, global oil prices do not rise incrementally. They spike catastrophically. The average depth of the Strait of Hormuz is approximately 50 meters. The deepest sections reach 90 meters. To put that in perspective, American Ohio-class submarines are 170 meters long and typically operate at depths of 240 meters or more. The strait is too shallow for large submarines to operate effectively, but it is the perfect depth for small submarines, autonomous underwater vehicles, and bottom-placed mines. And that is exactly what Iran has been deploying for the past decade. According to open-source intelligence compiled by the Naval War College and confirmed by multiple Western defense analysts, Iran operates between 19 and 23 Ghadir-class midget submarines. These are small diesel-electric submarines approximately 29 meters long, displacing approximately 120 tons, designed specifically for shallow water operations. They carry torpedoes, mines, and can deploy unmanned underwater vehicles. They are nearly silent when running on electric propulsion. And American sonar systems, optimized for detecting large nuclear submarines in deep water, struggle to distinguish them from background noise in the shallow, thermally complex waters of the Persian Gulf. Subscribe if you are watching this and realizing you are not getting this analysis from CNN or Fox News. Now let's talk about what Iran actually activated. Announcement number 1, the subsurface sensor network. And this one matters more than anything else because it gives Iran complete maritime domain awareness in the strait. For the past 8 years, Iran has been deploying stationary acoustic sensors across the floor of the Strait of Hormuz. These sensors are small, battery-powered, and designed to detect the acoustic signature of passing vessels. They relay data via underwater communication nodes to shore-based command centers. The system is similar in concept to the U.S. Navy's SOSUS network deployed during the Cold War to detect Soviet submarines in the Atlantic. According to analysis published by the Center for Strategic and International Studies and corroborated by statements from U.S. Navy Captain James Fennell, Iran has deployed an estimated 300 to 500 of these sensors across critical transit routes. Once activated, the system provides real-time tracking of every surface vessel and submarine transiting the strait. This means Iran knows the precise location, speed, and heading of every American warship, every commercial tanker, and every allied naval vessel in the region. Think carefully about what this means. Naval operations depend on operational surprise and freedom of maneuver. If your adversary knows exactly where your ships are at all times, surprise is impossible. Maneuver becomes predictable, and any platform operating in that environment becomes a target. The sensor network was installed over multiple years during routine commercial shipping traffic. Small fishing vessels and tugboats, operating under civilian cover, placed the sensors in predetermined locations. No military vessels were involved. No international maritime laws were violated, and Western intelligence agencies did not identify the deployment pattern until it was too late. Received. That is announcement number 1. Announcement number 2, the intelligent minefield. This is the part that U.S. Navy planners are treating as an existential threat to freedom of navigation. Mines are among the oldest and most effective naval weapons in history. They are cheap, simple, and devastatingly effective. During the tanker war in the 1980s, Iran used approximately 50 mines to damage or sink multiple vessels, including the USS Samuel B. Roberts. The U.S. Navy spent weeks conducting mine-clearing operations. The economic and operational impact was disproportionate to the cost of the weapons. But the mines Iran has deployed today are not the crude contact mines of the 1980s. These are intelligent mines, sometimes called encapsulated torpedoes or mobile mines. They sit on the seabed in a dormant state until activated by a command signal. Once activated, they use onboard sensors to detect passing vessels. If the target matches pre-programmed criteria, the mine can release a torpedo, rise to the surface and detonate beneath the hull, or remain dormant and allow the target to pass. According to reporting by Defense Security Asia and confirmed by U.S. Naval Intelligence Assessments, Iran has been manufacturing and deploying these intelligent mines since 2017. Estimates suggest between 800 and 1,200 mines have been placed in the Strait of Hormuz and surrounding waters. They are small, difficult to detect with conventional mine hunting sonar, and can be activated remotely via acoustic signal or pre-programmed timer. On May 7, 2026, U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft detected unusual electromagnetic activity consistent with command activation signals being transmitted from Iranian coastal stations. Within 48 hours, commercial shipping insurers began receiving notifications from maritime intelligence firms warning of increased mine threat levels in the strait. Within 72 hours, insurance premiums for tankers transiting the strait increased by 400%. Several major shipping companies suspended transits pending threat assessment. This is not theoretical. This is happening right now. The mines are active. The shipping industry knows it, and oil prices are responding accordingly. Brent crude futures spiked by 12% in 72 hours. Goldman Sachs issued a research note projecting a potential price spike to $130 per barrel if the strait remains contested. JP Morgan analysts are warning clients to hedge exposure to oil price volatility because the situation is unstable and unpredictable. Stay with me because this is where the strategic calculation becomes critical. Iran is not threatening to close the strait. Iran is demonstrating the capability to close the strait. There is a profound difference. A threat can be dismissed. A demonstrated capability must be respected. Announcement number 3, the subsurface autonomous vehicles. This is the part almost nobody in the Western media understands, and it represents the future of naval warfare. Autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, are unmanned systems that can operate independently for extended periods. They are powered by batteries or fuel cells, navigate using inertial guidance and acoustic positioning, and can carry sensors, cameras, or explosive payloads. They are small, quiet, and extremely difficult to detect. Iran has been developing AUV technology in partnership with China and North Korea since 2015. According to analysis by the International Institute for Strategic Studies and confirmed by Department of Defense assessments, Iran has deployed at least 60 to 80 AUVs in the Persian Gulf. These vehicles patrol pre-programmed routes, collect intelligence on naval movements, and in some cases carry explosive charges designed to attach to ship hulls or detonate beneath passing vessels. The critical detail is this: these systems operate autonomously. They do not require real-time human control. They follow pre-programmed instructions, react to sensor inputs, and execute their mission profiles without external communication. This means they cannot be jammed. They cannot be intercepted by cyber operations. They operate independently, and the only way to neutralize them is to physically locate and destroy them. In the thermally complex shallow waters of the Persian Gulf, that is extraordinarily difficult. U.S. Navy mine countermeasures vessels, including Avenger-class ships and MH-53E Sea Dragon helicopters, are designed to locate and neutralize mines. But they were designed for Cold War-era contact mines and tethered mines, not intelligent, mobile, autonomous systems. The detection rate is significantly lower. The time required to clear a minefield is measured in weeks, not days. And during that time, commercial shipping stops. Oil exports halt, and the global economy absorbs a supply shock that makes the 1973 oil crisis look mild by comparison. Received. That is announcement number 3. Now let's talk about what is really happening behind the headlines. Because the story you are hearing is not the story that matters. The public narrative is this: tensions are rising between Iran and the United States. Diplomacy is ongoing. Both sides are exercising restraint. This is the official line, and it is not entirely false. But it is incomplete. The real story is the emergency reassessment happening inside the Pentagon and inside the executive branch about whether the United States can actually enforce freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz if Iran decides to contest it. That reassessment is not theoretical. It is operational, and the preliminary conclusion is deeply uncomfortable. No, the United States probably cannot keep the strait open if Iran is willing to pay the cost of closing it. Here is why. The U.S. Navy has approximately 12 mine countermeasures ships in its entire fleet. Only a fraction of those are deployed in the Middle East at any given time. Clearing a minefield the size of what Iran has deployed would require every available asset operating continuously for a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks. During that time, no commercial traffic moves. Oil exports stop, and the global economy begins experiencing the most severe energy crisis since World War II. Now, the United States could attempt to destroy Iranian coastal defenses, command centers, and submarine bases using airstrikes and cruise missiles. But Iran has spent 20 years hardening those facilities. They are underground. They are dispersed. They are redundant. And destroying them does not deactivate the mines already in the water. The weapons are already deployed. They are autonomous. Destroying the command infrastructure does not neutralize the threat. According to a 2024 war game conducted by the Center for Naval Analyses, a scenario involving a sustained Iranian mining campaign in the Strait of Hormuz resulted in a projected oil supply disruption lasting 8 to 12 weeks, global oil prices exceeding $150 per barrel, and economic damage exceeding $2 trillion. The war game assumed full U.S. military commitment to mine-clearing operations and freedom of navigation enforcement. Even with that commitment, the economic damage was catastrophic. Think carefully about what this represents. When a regional power can inflict $2 trillion of economic damage on the global economy using weapons that cost less than $5 billion to produce and deploy, that is not asymmetric warfare. That is strategic leverage. That is deterrence. And that changes the entire calculation of what military force can achieve. If you own a vehicle, if you heat your home with natural gas, if you run a business with any logistics component, what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz is not a foreign policy story. It is a cost of living story. It is a recession story. It is a supply chain disruption story. And it is happening right now. This pattern has repeated throughout history, and every time it repeats, the outcome teaches the same lesson. Let me take you back to World War II, to the Battle of the Atlantic. Between 1939 and 1945, Nazi Germany deployed approximately 1,000 U-boats to disrupt Allied shipping across the Atlantic Ocean. These submarines were small diesel-electric vessels operating independently or in small groups called wolf packs. Their mission was simple: sink merchant ships carrying food, fuel, and military equipment from North America to Britain. The U-boats were vastly outnumbered by Allied warships. The Royal Navy and U.S. Navy had hundreds of destroyers, corvettes, and escort carriers dedicated to anti-submarine warfare. They had sonar, depth charges, and aerial reconnaissance. They had every technological advantage. And yet, the U-boats sank over 3,000 Allied merchant ships, totaling 14.5 million tons of shipping. They came perilously close to severing Britain's lifeline and forcing a negotiated peace. The lesson is not about technology. The lesson is about how a small number of cheap, difficult-to-detect platforms can threaten an entire supply chain if they operate in a contested environment where the defender must protect every vessel and the attacker only needs to sink a few to create systemic disruption. Iran's submarines, mines, and autonomous vehicles are the modern equivalent of the German U-boat. The Strait of Hormuz is the modern equivalent of the Atlantic convoy routes. And the 21 million barrels of oil per day transiting that strait are the modern equivalent of the food and fuel that kept Britain in the war. The parallel is exact, so where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 clear paths because the situation is binary in its implications. Path 1. The United States and Iran negotiate a de-escalation framework. Iran agrees to deactivate the subsurface systems in exchange for sanctions relief and security guarantees. Commercial shipping resumes. Oil prices stabilize. The crisis is resolved diplomatically. Probability 20%. This outcome requires both sides to compromise, and neither side has shown willingness to do so. Path 2. The standoff continues indefinitely. Iran keeps the systems active, but does not interfere with commercial shipping unless directly attacked. The United States maintains a heightened naval presence, but does not attempt mine-clearing operations. Shipping continues, but at significantly higher insurance costs. Oil prices remain elevated, but do not spike catastrophically. The region remains tense, and the risk of miscalculation persists. Probability 50%. This is the most likely outcome in the near term. Path 3, a miscalculation or deliberate escalation triggers active conflict. Iran begins interdicting tankers. The United States launches airstrikes against Iranian coastal facilities. Iran activates the minefield and closes the strait. The global economy enters a supply shock. Oil reaches $150 per barrel or higher. Recession follows. The conflict expands to include regional actors including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and potentially Israel. Probability 30%? I think we are in path 2 right now, but the risk of sliding into path 3 increases every day the standoff continues. Here is why. Economic pressure creates political pressure. If oil prices remain elevated for months, if inflation accelerates, if voters in the United States and Europe experience real economic pain, the political demand for action increases. And action, in this context, means military action. Once that begins, controlling escalation becomes extremely difficult. The fundamental question is this: can the United States afford to tolerate a situation where a regional adversary has demonstrated the capability to disrupt 20% of global oil supply? Or does tolerating that capability represent an unacceptable erosion of American strategic credibility? That is the question being debated in Washington right now, and the answer will determine whether we move toward diplomacy or war. Here are the questions I want you to take away from this analysis. First, if Iran can create this level of strategic leverage using relatively inexpensive weapon systems, What stops other regional powers from replicating this model in other critical choke points like the Strait of Malacca or the Bab el Mandeb? Second, if the cost of keeping the strait open exceeds the cost of closing it, how does that change the calculus of deterrence? Third, if the global economy is this vulnerable to supply disruptions in a single geographic choke point, what does that tell us about the fragility of the entire system? Tell me in the comments what you think happens next. Tell me if you believe Path 2 holds, or if we slide into Path 3. Tell me if you think the United States has the capability and the will to forcibly reopen the strait if Iran closes it. We will keep tracking every development in this crisis. That is what this channel does every single day. Subscribe now. Share this analysis with everyone in your network who is trying to understand what is happening beneath the surface of the Persian Gulf. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update, because this situation is evolving rapidly and the decisions made in the next 2 weeks will shape global energy markets for the next decade. We will see you in the next analysis.